Welcome to the Stick the Landing podcast, brought to you by Iron Business Solutions. We've got stories to tell and solutions to deliver for your business. Today, I've got a different format than what is normal around here. I've got an entire panel of guests, and we're going to do an episode titled Life After Gymnastics. What I've brought with me are four of my favorite former athletes, all who did gymnastics in different sort of Coach Ken eras. Hopefully, this will paint a more complete picture of the mistakes I made, as well as the things that I got right. Maybe I can help some athletes find their identities after gymnastics is done, or help a coach help their athletes with the transition from doing gymnastics to not doing gymnastics. Better yet, maybe some of these lessons will help extend the life of a gymnastics career or two. And in the end, we'll talk about the benefits of being a gymnast at all. So girls, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show today. What an absolute treat for me. How are y'all?
Doing good. Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. Do y'all remember way back when you were athletes and a new kid would join our gym and I would say like, okay, girls, I'm going to point at you and then you're going to say your name, your nickname, how old you are, what level you're doing, that kind of stuff. And we go around, let's do something similar like that today. Anna, we'll start with you.
My name is Anna LeDeux. My nickname in gymnastics was GB, which stood for
Glass bones. Yeah, because you were always breaking them.
I retired from gymnastics when I was 15 years old and was training for level 9 at that time. And now I am 31 years old and working as a nurse practitioner.
All right, Kate, hit me.
I'm Caitlin Smits. My nickname was Kate, spelled K8. I was a level 10.
Literally got it typed like that here.
I was a level 10. I retired at 16. I have 2 kids. I have 2 daughters. A 13.
Are they your hobby?
They are my hobbies. They're my everything right now. They're 13 and 8 years old. And I have 8 dogs, 17 chickens.
8 dogs? That can't be right.
It is.
Good gravy.
It's 13 acres, though.
Okay. Well, I have 6 acres, so should I have 4 dogs? Oh, you know what? At one time I did have 4 dogs.
Dogs are like Pringles. You can't just have one.
Okay, fair.
So, 8 dogs, 17 chickens, and an ant farm.
You don't really have an ant farm.
We're homeschooling right now, and it was part of the science project. They're actually fascinating.
Okay. All right. Heather, talk to us.
I'm Heather Parker. I'm 19 years old. My nickname is Headers, and I'm currently a collegiate gymnast. Hobbies? Honestly, I don't really have time for a bunch of hobbies.
As a collegiate gymnast, of course not. Yeah. Yeah, Headers, audience, her nickname is Headers because there was a super cute, super tiny, super skinny kid in a group that she used to be in, and we called her Sketty, short for spaghetti. And they were sort of, I don't know, rivals, you know? They were both like really good at the same level at the time, and so I called them Sketters and Headers. And I always used to ask, who's going to be better, Headers or Sketters? So that's her nickname. All right, Patrice.
My name is Patrice Hunter. Only Coach Ken called me Triz. That was my nickname.
I thought I was, gangsta.
No,
right?
not at all.
It was Snoop Dogg. You were Patrizzle.
I know. I stopped doing gymnastics when I was 17. I made it to level 9, training 10. My hobbies now are mainly just hanging out with family and friends and, of course, taking care of my new baby.
How old's your baby?
5 months.
And he's cute as a button.
Yeah.
I've selected you 4 out of the little hundreds of athletes that I've coached for a few reasons. First, all of you guys came up through different Coach Ken eras. Kate was at the very beginning of ETC starting. And then Patrice and Anna overlapped a little bit, but they were sort of that next generation coming up. And then fast forward all the way to when I retired is Heather's era. And I picked you guys because these eras are very different. Like I grew some as a coach, matured some. Not my sense of humor hasn't matured. Poops and farts are still funny, but how I coach kids has matured. And I wanted in this episode to take some time to even point out, and we will later, some mistakes I made when I was young, some lessons we all learned from those mistakes, and maybe show sort of an evolution of becoming a good coach. But beyond that, you guys have 4 solid things in common. The first is you've all stayed in contact with me over the last 25 years. Not hard for you, Heather. Your mom still works for me and you've only been gone a year. You all believe gymnastics positively impacted your lives. You all love gymnastics to this day. And if I can not step over the line or not assume anything, I think you all love me to this day. So that's why it was so hard to find 4 and I couldn't get 5 because there aren't 5 people that still love me. If you could have Mary Lee Tracy or Tom Forster for 1 year helping your team program develop, how much better off would your athletes be? Better yet, with their tutelage, how much better of a coach would you become? Go to ironbusinesssolutions.com today and take advantage of our limited time pricing. Let's give our audience a chance to learn a little bit about you and your story by maybe give us a memorable or a funny story from your gymnastics career. Somebody go ahead and tell me a funny story.
So one of the things that stands out, back, I was a compulsory at the time. I'm not sure what level this was, but Coach Kim would often do contests where we would get prizes. And
is this the ferret story?
this is the
Oh my gosh. All right.
You might interject and help me out.
Go ahead. No, you tell it. You tell it. This was crazy.
We're at the gym, and sometimes during like the summer, we'd prop the door open, and in walks a ferret.
A ferret, ladies and gentlemen, like an actual like weasel et ferret walked into the gym where we were doing gymnastics. So I picked up the parrot, put it in a cardboard box, and what did I do next?
Decided we were going to have a contest, and the prize was going to be this ferret.
Yep. Whichever kid won the ferret or whichever kid won the contest was going home with the ferret. Their parents loved me.
So lucky for us, we had a teammate at the time named Peyton.
Peyton, super country girl. Her middle name was Ray, and I used to say, way to go, Peyton Ray.
Yep. But their family already had several animals and
lived on a veritable farm, for real.
It made sense that she would want a ferret. So he rigged this contest to make sure that
who is that guy?
You. And so we had this contest. Peyton sure did win, and she went on to name this ferret
Leslie, who was the coach I was coaching with at the time. So I boxed the ferret. I rig a contest so she can win the ferret, and she doesn't even have the courtesy to name it Ken. Like, rude. What a jerk.
Rude.
Right? Yeah. That's why Peyton's not on the podcast and Anna is.
You didn't give me a ferret.
Your parents would have killed me.
True.
That's the great thing about coaching kids, though, is I literally was like, okay, we're having a contest, and the prize is dental floss. And they're like, don't even look at it, Patrice. Like, I'm going to win it. You know, like.
I don't know if this might have been right before you came, but I had this thing, I called it Sergeant Stripes, that the kids used to love to get. And when they would get one, they would salute me and say, sir, yes, sir. And all I would do, I'd go in the office, and you know those labels you print out addresses on or whatever, the stick. I'd just grab a couple of sheets of those, and then I'd rip it in half, and I'd be like,
labels.
Yeah. And I'd just be like, hey, next kid to make a free up the handstands, getting a sergeant stripe. And then everybody's like trying to bust out free up the hands. And then I'm putting stripes on their shoulders, and they're going, sir, yes, sir. And
I'm going to use that.
Yeah, do it, man.
Creative.
All right. Sorry. Who else has a funny story from their time?
I do.
All right. Well,
I mean, one of my favorite memories of all time probably was when you made a poop sculpture out of a power bar at a meet, and we were waiting to like rotate to the next event, and Coach Kim like is meticulously like shaping and sculpting.
Put like serious effort into this.
You had pre-wrap kind of somewhere in there
to act as toilet paper. I stained the pre-wrap with the chocolate power bar, shaped it. I even gave it the appropriate wrinkles and lines, left it in a pile on a chair, so it looked like somebody pooped on a chair.
We left it
and wiped. And right, that's
yeah. And then we rotated and left it for the next competitors to come in.
Yeah, that was the Jeffrey Catcher Memorial in Chattanooga. Right.
It was art, though.
Legendary. It really was. Like really I took some time. The meet must have been running behind or something because I had some time. Either one of you two bozos got a funny story you want to share?
Well, speaking of like just inappropriate, I guess things.
Oh boy.
We had so many things and so many funny conversations that we would have at the end of the vault runways. And
Oh, gosh.
there was one time when one of the corrections was run on the balls of your feet. And
Yeah, so the people know, especially with little kids, what I often did on vault was I would give them a correction, and before they took their next turn, they had to shout their correction to me, and that was for two reasons. One, so I could remember what the heck I told them to fix last time, and two, so that they would, because half the time you give these guys a correction on vault, and by the time they get back and they get their next turn, they don't even remember. So it's a chance for them to focus on what they're supposed to be focusing on. So the correction was run on the balls of your feet, and
we could not hold it together. Like, we thought that was
yeah, because they're like
hilarious.
11 and 12 years old, and they don't want to say the word balls.
I can't remember exactly who had the correction, but
I think it was Anna.
was it Anna?
Probably. I can't imagine I would like to yell balls.
Yeah.
Well, now you're doing it on a podcast for thousands. Way to go.
But yeah, so till this day, just anytime someone says I even give the correction to my gymnast, run on the balls of your feet, I think about that.
And so you didn't even tell him what the consequence of that was. That Anna wouldn't, you guys kept giggling and Anna wouldn't say balls out loud. So I got a laundry basket full of balls and walked down to the end of the vault runway and said, girls, do you see this? These are balls. There are tennis balls. There are volleyballs. There are footballs. Balls. Now, can we get back to doing vault? Yeah, gosh. Golly, that had to be like 23, 24 years ago.
Pathology.
Headers, you got one?
I do. It's probably not going to top any of those, but
Thank God.
level 9 state meet.
Please don't mention names.
I'm about to salute a judge. It was the wrong one. Okay, so one of the judges was signaling the head judge, and I thought it was the signal to go. So I present, I go, I think it was a great vault.
It was.
I present, and then you're like, haha, like that doesn't count. And then one of the judges freaks out and says it's gonna be a half point
Penalty.
yeah, for on my next vault. And Coach Ken is going, that's bleeping. It just
Might have said some things. Now listen, audience, she's not doing a good job setting up this story. You need to understand my rage here. First, I, at the time, felt like this particular judge didn't care for me. I don't know if that was true or not. It was a chip I had on my shoulder. It was definitely true. And Heather was, without a doubt, that particular year, the best vaulter in the state of Tennessee. And later that bears true because she ends up winning level 10 nationals and all this stuff on vault. So like, I'm not exaggerating. She really was the best level 9 vaulter in the state of Tennessee. And we're in this gym and it's super crowded. And if you're not gymnastics familiar, you can't start a routine until the head judge acknowledges you. Sometimes with a flag, sometimes they raise their arm. And that's your signal to present and start your routine. So the judge sitting across from the head judge is trying to get the attention of the head judge. Heather can't see the head judge because there's people in her way because there's a lot of people at this meet. And so the judge sitting across from the head judge is waving her hand to get the head judge's attention. Heather mistakes this as a wave, like you're clear to vault. So she presents vaults. I think it's funny. Ha. That doesn't count. You got to go do it again. The head judge doesn't think it's funny. And she says, Ken, that'll be a half point penalty. And she needs to get down there and get ready to go. And I completely lost my cool. I said a lot of things. I guess I regret them because there were little kids around. I stopped the whole meet. I insisted that the meet referee come over, that the state chair come over, because no way they're doing to this kid, because even that judge acknowledged, hey, head judge, I was waving my hand. That's why this kid went. And the head judge wasn't going to budge. And I wasn't having none of that. And eventually we got it all resolved. I did get censured by USA Gymnastics for stopping a whole meet. Thankfully, I was retiring at the end of that year. So it was like, censor schmincher. All right. Well, so we've got poop balls getting censored by USA Gymnastics and giving away animals that wander into the gym. Anybody want to sign their kid up at ETC? It's safe because I've retired. All right. One of the beauties of our sport is that almost no one gets through their career without having a setback or two. And I say that as beauty, but there is some beauty to it. So to quote Patrice's dad, who wants to share their setback that was only a setup for a comeback?
So when I first came to ETC, I actually was I moved here from Georgia. We actually were going to 2 totally different gyms.
In Georgia, because the one gym was kind of like, we don't think Patrice is right.
Yes. And so mentally, I'm thinking, I'm really not that good, but I'm going to continue to try gymnastics. So coming to Tennessee and getting this brand new coach who I did not know or already didn't care for. I was a preteen, of course.
Yep.
So
I'm a bit much to take.
yeah, you're going to be great. I did not trust him, but I decided one day, we had a conversation and he just said, give me 6 weeks and I will make you into the gymnast that you want to be. You can be good at gymnastics. And that was the first time that I heard that I could be good at gymnastics, just like my sister.
I remember taking a look at you when you came to the gym, and I kept asking myself, what about this kid did these other coaches in Georgia not see? Why did they not see this? And I remember just pulling you to the side and sort of saying, just give me 6 weeks. Like, do what I say for 6 weeks. And then if we get to the end of the 6 weeks, you aren't a lot better at gymnastics, then fine, I'll back off. But I think if you follow this plan, I think you're going to be good. And to your credit, at 12 stinking years old, I'll use leg lifts as an example because it was a true story. Like, I could see the hamster get on the wheel in there and start running a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, look, we got leg lifts. We used to, when we go to bars, we would do 2 sets of 15 seconds leg lifts, and they had to be counted to see how many you could get or whatever. And I saw you at that practice, like, try for the first time. Let me see how many I can actually get. And it wasn't like you were still middle bottom of the group. Mm-hmm. By the time we get like 3 weeks into it, all of a sudden you're like near the top of the group, and I can see the light bulb go on.
Yep.
Where you were like, yeah, maybe I am good.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you had a great career where you were good at gymnastics the whole rest of your career. If you could have Ken Harris or Tom Forrester for 1 year walking with you while you navigate your business's needs, if you could have them to run your ideas past, get their input on various situations as they arise, how much more efficient could your business become? Go to ironbusinesssolutions.com today and inquire about our gold medal business package. Who else has a setback, setup, comeback?
I did not start real gymnastics. Like, I didn't start competing USAG gymnastics until I was 11, 12 years old. I was in ETC's recreational gymnastics program up until the age of, I think 11. Yeah.
Yep.
And like that, like going from like 8-ish hours, because I was in 2 different classes because I love gymnastics so much. Going from 8 hours to like 22 hours is a big jump, and everyone told me that I would hate it, and it doesn't work out. It just doesn't work making that big switch that late.
More often than not, it doesn't. And I remember meeting with your parents and saying to them, look, this kid has a real passion for gymnastics, and the last thing I want to do is squash that passion. Let's give her a shot because she's freakishly good at gymnastics. But the moment this kid's coming home going, I want to quit, let's hear that and move her back to the place where she's happy again. Because I don't want to squash gymnastics out of her. Well, hard as I tried, I couldn't squash gymnastics out of her. Started at 11, qualified elite compulsory by the time you were 15. Mm-hmm. So you went from not on team to qualifying elite compulsory, and would have qualified elite optional if one of your bozo coaches would have remembered to bring your floor music to the elite qualifier in Pennsylvania. Made a few mistakes. I said at the beginning of this podcast that I made some mistakes. So that was quite a, not really like a setback. Like you just started off back. It's not like you were doing fine and then had a setback. You were just back. Either one of you guys got a setback you want to share with us?
I like around level 8, I had some mental blocks that I had to work through. But honestly, at the time, like just switching gyms and stuff was the best thing for me and for my coaches.
Not for me.
It was heartbreaking, but making the switch was ultimately, I think, a good move for me. And then the last 2 years I was competing, I had 5 knee surgeries. So, and it wasn't like the surgeries I had, they weren't repairing anything or like strengthening, like, or reinforcing the knee.
They were taking out like useless cartilage.
Yeah, so
or meniscus.
like damage control. So then it was just bone on bone and I couldn't continue. So that was a setback that took me out of the game.
Ultimately did not lead to a comeback, which happens.
I mean, but it's okay. I got my D1 scholarship for diving. So, and that was because of my gymnastics training.
Anna?
So mine is similar to Kate's. As evidenced by my nickname being GB Class Bones, a large portion of my gymnastics career, I was injured. But my first major injury happened when it was after level 7. There's kind of a story to go along with this, but we were at practice on bars and I was, just doing my normal thing. And out of nowhere, my arm locked up. And I don't really remember what I did at that time, but I know I looked at you and was like, I can't move my arm.
And I feel like we were in the middle of a timed assignment. And I remember I was unjustifiably ticked.
Yeah, you sent me to the bleachers,
I was like,
which was like our punishment.
Like, bull crap, your arm won't. Because what you said is, I can't straighten my arm. And I was like, bull crap. Like, how can you not straighten? Well, tell us how you couldn't straighten.
So I went on to get diagnosed with a bone condition.
Osteochondritis dissecans, OCD is what it's known as. Pieces of your elbow were breaking off.
So kind of similar to you. I went on to have several surgeries that were just damage control, repair. If the cartilage was still hanging on, they'd pin it back. If not, they would clean it up. But I had 2 elbow surgeries on the same arm after level 7. Went back made it back to level 8. Competed 2 meets of my first time doing level 8. And then my left arm locked up. The same thing happened. And had elbow surgery again.
In between there, you broke your toe.
We're not there yet.
Okay, all right. I don't want to rush you. Sorry.
But then
there's more.
I would
It's an infomercial. But wait, there's more.
The comeback, I would say, was following that first time I did level 8. I did, heal up enough to do a full level 8 season. And had a good season. Patrice was on my team at that time. We won state.
Yeah, you guys won state. Yep.
I made it to regionals. Overall, I did have a pretty good meet at regionals. But ended up falling on floor, which was the last time I ever competed in gymnastics. But after.
And none of us, there wasn't a formal announcement, Anna's retiring after this, but all of us knew, in our hearts, because I can remember putting my arm around you, fake kissing you on the top of the head, and sort of having a tear in my eye and tears in your eyes. And it wasn't because, I fell on the floor.
Yeah.
We all knew this kid's not going to be able to.
Yeah.
My last level 10 meet on bars, I landed my front, toe on front off, dismount, and I just landed straight leg and locked both my legs
good
out.
For your knees.
Yeah.
We're not painting gymnastics in a very good picture.
Sorry, leave this out. But I crumbled and had to be carried off. That was my last meet too.
But then I went on and stayed in the sport for about 2 years after that, just kind of recovering, and tried to maybe be a beam specialist, which I'm pretty sure that was my worst event. But Coach Jennifer was just,
It's a shame because you were so good at bars. You were so good at bars. Each of you guys had some significant trials in the sport. How do you think going through those trials, some of which you conquered and some of which we couldn't, How do you think they affect your lives now?
I'll start because I think this is a huge deal. Like I felt like I had to quit or I was ready. Like my body gave out. I just couldn't do it anymore. And I just so wasn't ready. I just wasn't like I needed to be like, get credit for doing this or that. It's just, I had a plan. I did everything that I was supposed to do. Like, and then I just barely like missed kind of where I wanted to go. And so, I was heartbroken, like not having gymnastics and stuff. And like, but I truly think like at any point in your life, like most people have to go through some type of difficult heartbreak or losing something that they've worked really hard towards. And I feel very grateful that honestly that it did happen when I was young, because I had the most amazing parents, to come home to. I had a great home life. It wasn't like I was building a business and my family relied on it to, I didn't lose something like that. I lost something that was heartbreaking, truly. And it was at a vulnerable time in my life, like as a teenager, where you're already kind of going through this identity stuff, trying to figure out who you are. And so it was difficult to navigate, but I am appreciative that if it had to happen at some point in my life, I learned that lesson so early that it really, I feel like I can navigate almost any difficult situation now, or at least know like, okay, that didn't work, or I know myself better too, like how I handle adversity. I know I need to stay busy. I need to have structure. I can't sit around and just feel sorry for myself. I need to make a new plan. I need to go in a different direction, and so.
What a really terrific perspective. And it really is that, all of us in our lives, gymnastics or not gymnastics, are going to face some kind of trial that is going to be hard on us. Mm-hmm. And if we're able to face that like you were, say, at 16 years old, surrounded by your parents and a support system that can help you navigate your way through this, not enable you or not handle it all for you, but just help you, equip you with the tools to handle it. Those are tools that you, just like you were saying, you'll take with you when you start your own dog grooming business, for example, and things are looking bleak and you go, hey, I've been here before. I can navigate my way to the other side.
Yeah.
What a great perspective.
Yeah. And with like life lessons that we've learned, you always would tell me, though I was scared of some skills, you would say, this is a D-level skill. D equals death. If you say you're going to do it, you better do it. And since then, that's how I go about life. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I haven't had many.
So my listening audience, just as a quick review, USA Gymnastics assigns a difficulty value to all of the skills. And A is the easiest. And now in FIG, I think they have J's, maybe even H's, something like that. But in JO, it goes up to E. So D is like the second most difficult skill you can do. And basically what I was communicating when I was telling her D equals death is if you start this trick and back out in the middle, you just sort of say, hey, I'm too scared in the middle. The consequences are severe. And I boiled that all down to D equals death.
Yeah.
And that's
scary as a 15-year-old, but till this day, like I said, if I say I'm going to do it, I do it. Even if it is, something with work or, purchasing a house or whatever I set my mind to, I'm going to do it.
Things would get hard and you would, and even to this day, just know, hey, if I persevere through this,
exactly, I'm
going to get to the other side and the chances are really good I'm going to do it.
It might not be death, but.
Yeah. As long as you don't stop in the middle.
Right.
Anybody else want to talk to me about sort of your, like how you now have skills that you developed from the setbacks? I mean, Heather, you're just 19 or whatever, but what did you learn maybe from the experience of not starting competitive gymnastics till you were 11? And then 4 years later, being at level 10 nationals and being competitive in the all around. Like you were, I think, top 10 in the all around, something like that.
That's incredible, by the way.
Yeah,
Good
nobody
job.
does that.
Yeah.
Nobody does that.
Awesome.
Has this inspired you in such a way that like you sort of feel like maybe, what can't I do?
Well, maybe not. I wouldn't frame it like that, but
I will.
it definitely taught me like discipline and like self motivation is like like I can go on YouTube and look at a new skill that I want to learn, and I will learn it just because I think it
Don't
looks
tell her she
cool.
can't do something.
I can attest.
Like we started learning doubles for fun, and then we were like, this might be actually like kind of cool to do on the floor, and like not many people do it.
Just kind
And so one day we
did a double on the floor, and it was awesome.
I mean,
All right.
recreational Heather was like, "Hey, watch me! Look at this new trick," and we're like,
That was slightly scary
"Yeah."
because she was teaching herself.
You actually told me one day it was vault. It was in rec. We don't have that much time on vault. Maybe like
20 minutes.
20 minutes. And you're like, go on YouTube, look up a video of his Sukahara. I'm like, okay, cool. So I did. And then the very next practice,
Did you tell her how to spell it? Because Sukahara starts with a T, and there's no way some 10-year-old kid is going to know to do
It
that.
is not.
we had voice text.
of.
And my parents helped me.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
then the very next practice, we came in and you spotted me on the tumble track table, and we learned a Sukahara.
I mean, that's how everybody does it, I think.
I didn't know what I was doing either. Probably went on YouTube too.
We figured it out together.
Exactly.
Wow. Sign your kids up at ETC.
It's safe, right?
We're YouTube gymnastics. Oh, my goodness.
The pit. What was
Well,
the
now
second-
my marriage is dead. My business is dead. What a mistake to bring you guys on. All right. Let me refocus the group before I lose. Like my dogs want to run away
It's okay.
over here. Clearly. All right. One of the things that's always impressed me about our sport is this sort of like sibling-like relationship you have with your teammates. And I say this well, here, I'll just keep going. We end up with this like sibling type relationship where we have relationships that carry on beyond what they should for their years. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about some of the relationship benefits or relationships that you have to this day? And it's because of the sport.
I think whenever you are going through something that requires so much of you, like gymnastics does,
Yeah.
there's very few people that can relate to that. And I think because we have our teammates going through that with us, it, sets us up to have a relationship that's very different than, say my best friends that I have from high school or my best friends that I have from my sorority in college, who are all really great friends to me. But whenever I think of those friends versus my gymnastics friends, it's not the same. And my gymnastics friendships are much deeper.
And for you, I think of like Megan Ward as an example, or Lexi Taylor, that you guys still are deep
very
and
close.
talk to one another regularly, do stuff. Megan Ward's, did she graduate med school already?
So after we both graduated from college, we ended up moving to Nashville. I was moving there to be a nurse at Vanderbilt, and she was moving there to go to Vanderbilt to get her master's degree prior to applying to
Medical school.
And so we lived in Nashville together.
And she came and worked at ETC for a little while.
Yeah.
It was great. She was great.
But to this day, she is now an OBGYN resident.
Wow.
And I am now a nurse practitioner. And there's probably at least once a month, I will reach out to her and text her about some client that I have, asking like, what would you do about, this going on, and get her opinion. And it's crazy to have known these people at all of these different stages of life and to see where we are now. But, and they're the friendships that we might talk once a month, But when we talk for 2 hours.
It's not superficial. It's not, how's the weather? You know, what's your favorite color? It's like, it's deep. Hey, I'm going through this thing. I just broke up with my boyfriend, or I just got this new boyfriend. Kate, you're married. You can't have boyfriends. So probably stop calling about that. Right?
But,
It's for real.
Within like the last couple of years, there were some times in my life that were pretty challenging with, health scares within my family, relationship changes with me, and Megan and Lexi were two of the people that I knew I could reach out to.
Lexi, who's also a nurse.
Lexi's a nurse, yeah. I got to be there at the hospital. I was working at the hospital when she delivered her son.
Oh.
That was like a fun thing. But, there were two of the people that I could reach out to that they know me better than anybody. And they've been there with me through the events that have shaped me into who I am today. So it's just it's a different kind of friendship.
An authentic, intimate.
Yeah.
It's a low maintenance friendship too. Like, I feel like you don't have to like check in on them. You don't have to like meet up once a month.
Yeah.
No, they're just like your ride or die people that are there anytime you call them.
And for you, that would be the sisters, Jamie and Jenna.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm. We met, Jamie was 7, and I think Jenna and I were both 8. And it's just, we've been through everything together through life. But like I said, it's not like we have to talk all the time and stuff. It's just like those big things, like we're there for each other. And I always feel that. And like, it's just cool.
And there's no, like, you're not skipping a beat when you get together.
No. Yeah.
It's like you've been together the whole time.
Yeah. It's natural. But, and also, so Jamie has, well, they both have kids now, but Jamie's kids are a little bit older than Jenna's, and watching her kids play with my kids, and they're kind of the same ages as like when we met, and it's just full circle. It's kind of fun to like just be a part of somebody growing up and growing little kids.
Heathers, what about relationships for you? What?
I didn't really have a ton of like really deep relationships with like teammates like in like middle school, high school. I think honestly it was because
You didn't have any peers. You went from 0 to 1,000,000 like that.
I probably switched into different groups like every other season. So I was never really with the same people. Although I was with my friend Jossie for so long, and we're like each other's like basically like ride or die now. And but other than that, like I feel like I'm getting to experience what all of you have gotten to experience. I feel like I'm getting to experience that now in college as I'm building those really deep relationships with them now, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, for me, I mean, I not only actually had a sibling that I did gymnastics with, and we are tight as can be to this day. I mean, we shared rooms, we shared jobs, we shared everything together. But I also am like connected to everybody here, being teammates with Anna, and we still like baby showers, bridal showers, like we're meeting up at those, inviting each other to those. And then with Kate, I'm best friends with Jenna, who she mentioned earlier. And so we've been to like bachelorette parties and had a time. A good time. And then Heather, like we said earlier, I used to coach her. So it's really fun to be here with all of these girls because I know them personally.
And so I sort of said, when I kicked off this question, like it's a sibling-like relationship. And the thing I meant about that was, I got a sister, and when we were kids, I won't say that we fought like cats and dogs because I got 2 dogs and a cat and they get along fine. My sister and I hated each other when we were kids. I mean, we really could not stand each other, except when the parents were going off the rails, when mom was being crazy, when dad was being crazy. Me and my sister Christine, we were tight. We had each other's back in the sort of moment of crisis. And what that did, honestly, because we were there for each other in moment of crisis, is it created this sort of like thick bond, like an unbreakable bond, where today my sister and I think might argue that we're close. And you guys, when Coach Ken was going off the rails, or Coach Jennifer going off, Coach Jennifer going off the rails. Ken was the one off the rails, let's be honest here. When Coach Ken was going off the rails, you guys and your teammates, even if in the moment you personally weren't getting along, you guys would link up and like, hey, we got the sibling code here, like the bro code,
Yeah.
right? Where it's us against the crazy coach over there. And that bond lasts and it translates just the way it did, like I'm saying, for my sister and I, who it took until we were adults before we could like really mature around that. And because you guys, it wasn't that you couldn't stand your teammates, you guys actually liked your teammates. That bond started immediately and continues to this day. So when you think back on these relationships, how does it make you feel? In other words, do you think that those relationships are deeper than your average, like middle school, high school relationships? And I say that because before either one of my kids went off to college, I took them out for a nice meal, and like I had a little speech prepared, like, well, Ken, he's going to be prepared for stuff. And one of the things I talked about was, I know it feels heartbreaking right now that you're leaving all your friends behind and you're not sure how you're going to get over this. But 20 years from now, these high school kids that were your best friends in high school, you aren't even going to know where they are. And the friends that you're going to make in college are going to be the people that are going to be at your wedding, that when you have your first kid, they're going to show up. When you have your third kid and your third kid is in the hospital, they're going to drive from 3 states away to babysit the other 2 kids. And I feel like, based on my experience with all of you guys and the hundreds of other gymnasts that I coached, that's the kind of relationship that you had with kids when you were 8, 10, 12, 15 years old, which is not normal. What do you think about that?
Yeah, just when you're pushing yourself to your limits, like you said, the people next to you are just, who you're going through some of the toughest times of your life at that point. Like, you do lean on each other, and it does create like a bond that just lasts a lifetime.
Yeah, we also not only going through stuff with our at gymnastics at practice, but like our personal things that we would go through at home, and sometimes we were each other's escape. So our slumber party.
I was going to say, half the time you guys were at each other's house after practice anyway.
Yep,
yeah,
exactly. So, we probably would do a slumber party if we didn't have all our responsibilities we have now. We'd still do it.
If you could have Mary Lee Tracy or Tom Forster for 1 year helping your team program develop, how much better off would your athletes be? Better yet, with their tutelage, how much better of a coach would you become? Go to ironbusinesssolutions.com today and take advantage of our limited time pricing. So let's talk a little bit. I hear this often when I'm inviting a new athlete to the team. So a little kid is going to start doing team gymnastics. And I hear from parents frequently a phrase, what about missing out on an ordinary childhood? I think this is a thing that a lot of parents wonder about. And I just want to know, you guys who all went through it to a high level in a good number of hours, do you have some feelings on this? Do you have some thoughts? Talk to me.
I think looking at our childhood, I don't think of it as missing out. I do think my childhood looked different than, my peers at school.
In what ways?
I think that they were doing, we had a time where we were a little bit more careful with, going roller skating and, different outside of the gym activities, especially me being so injury prone. But, those things.
Yeah, y'all were afraid to ride bikes in your neighborhood because if Coach Ken drove down the road and you were on a bike, he was going to have a hemorrhage.
He actually lives in the same neighborhood.
But I think, with doing competitive gymnastics, it really provides you with a lot of really incredible opportunities that my peers also didn't have. And, I was spending every day with my best friends doing what I love. So when I think about that, how could I be missing out on something? And in a sense, I probably didn't know what I was missing out on because I was so happy with where I was.
Yeah. What about y'all?
I know we had a hard time Halloween and some of the different things that our other friends would be doing outside of gymnastics. and even like football games, Friday night football, we had practice till 8:45. We were not going to a Friday night football game. And in that moment, it did feel like we were missing out on something. But now looking back, I really feel like it kept me innocent for so long. I was not into the boys. Like until I was like a senior in high school, I didn't, care to go out on dates or be asked on a date because gymnastics was my boyfriend at the time.
Yeah.
I was, and like Anna said, we were with each other all the time. We were with our best friends. So there was no need to be at those football games with those other friends. Because honestly, they probably weren't really watching football. They were, looking for the cute boys on the team.
And I mean, if you think about any given week when we were doing competitive gymnastics, we would go to practice and then maybe Friday night would come and the gym would have parents' night out.
Yeah.
We would choose to stay at the gym for like 3 more hours.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And then we would practice on Saturday and then choose to go to open gym after our practice on Saturday. It's like we wanted this life for ourselves and couldn't keep us away.
I mean, yeah, like there were certain things that you missed, like the turkey trot at school or, fundraisers or whatever. But like, I mean, I was never forced to go to practice. Like my mom said, you can quit at any time. And her only rule was you can't quit on a bad day.
Did you ever want to lie and say, Mom, today was great, but I quit?
Yeah. No, I never wanted to quit. And so just there are so many more opportunities that you get with this that are so unique and so incredible. Getting to travel with like your best friends, your second family, and all these like just lifelong relationships that you make with them. And then you get to go on little vacations to all the meets,
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, you get bonded with that entire family, like it's not just your best friends or whatever, like your whole families get involved with this. It's just the sport.
Yeah, because it's not like if we would go to Orlando for a meet, it's not like your parents left Carly at home.
No.
Right? Carly came.
But so this is a question that I also asked my oldest daughter because she is not on team. My youngest is. But Reese always comes to practice with us. I mean, 3-hour practices or 4-hour practices every single time. And she just kind of floats around the gym and she plays on the equipment.
This is at a gym. Kate lives in North Carolina and works at a gym.
Sorry. So different gym. Yeah. But they always because Reese is so perfect and easy. They probably wouldn't do the same for my youngest. I love you, Hattie. But I asked Reese the same question, like, do you think that you have, unique opportunities, or how do you feel about gymnastics, especially being the one not even in it? Like, do you feel like you have unique opportunities, or do you feel kind of like stifled a little bit with your childhood? And she was like, absolutely not. This is the coolest thing ever. Like, these are my best friends. I've never met a whole entire group of people that feels so much like a family, and you get to go on vacations. I mean, she just kind of laughed at the question, like, no, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
I really like what Anna said. Like, we didn't really know what we were missing out on because we were so happy with what we were doing and who we were doing it with. Like the traveling for.
Love to hear that. It really is music to my ears. Like, it better yet, it's like a coat for my heart because it warms it up. And I'm saying that seriously because we as in Jennifer and I always wanted like ETC gymnastics to be a place that kids wanted to be. Like it was important to us. And Kate started and Anna started in the old gym that was 7,200 square feet. The equipment was from the 1980s. We didn't have an 8-incher for like 2 years or 3 years, for crying out loud.
I remember when you got the big Resi.
Yeah.
It had like muddy paw prints all over.
And the only reason we got that was there's a high school up here in like Goodlettsville. I think they're called the Green Wave. And you remember that Resi was called the Green Wave. They ordered that to be their high jump mat. And it got shipped via Yellow Freight, and Yellow Freight tore it. Do you guys remember the big tear on the bottom that we just fixed up with duct tape?
Yes.
Well, I had a friend that worked at Yellow Freight, and they had to pay an insurance claim on this mat. This is like a $3,000 mat. We couldn't afford $3,000 back. We couldn't hardly afford $300. But the deductible on their insurance claim was like $150 or $180. So my friend called and said, hey, we got this big mat. It's got a big tear in it. But if you guys will pay the deductible, you can have the mat. And it was like $150 or $180. We got a $3,000 mat, and we just took some tape because the tear was on the bottom. But yeah, it was filthy because it was sitting outside and whatever. We cleaned it up a little bit here and there.
It worked a couple years ago.
I didn't realize that mat was that old. I love that mat.
Yeah.
It's a great mat.
Didn't you get like a giant pole vaulting mat and you like cut it and like sewed
We
it?
sure
Those
did.
interesting mats.
Yep, we sure did. How did we get all the way to here? I was saying that I love that ETC was a place that you guys wanted to be. And so one of the ways I always explain sort of the difference of like when a mom says to me, hey, I'm worried my kid's going to miss out on her childhood. I always ask this question. I say, do you want your child to have an ordinary childhood or an extraordinary childhood? Because this will not be ordinary. It's going to be challenging at times, but it's going to be mostly spectacular. First, like you guys have all touched on, you're taking little trips with your homies all year long, right? Your best friends. You guys are staying in hotels, swimming in pools, even when Coach Ken's saying, don't go swimming before the meet. Don't think I didn't know it was happening. You're going to Disney World, going to the beach. Even like you could go to like Memphis, and because you're there in a hotel with your friends, you're having a good time because you're all going out to eat, right? You don't have time, especially these days. They didn't exist when some of you guys were doing teen. But an ordinary childhood is a kid sitting at their house with their cell phone in their hand on a screen, scroll.
Instant gratification.
Yep. And even nowadays with a kid like Heather, your cell phone is locked up in your locker during practice. You're interacting with live people constantly. And by the way, it's more fun. Like, if we all sit and think about it, it is more fun to be with live people than it is to text and whatever. Like a shared experience is a more fun experience. So, and then two of you touched on this already. There just isn't time in an extraordinary childhood for you to be exposed to the things that I, as a parent, kind of worried, is my kid going to be exposed to this too early? Like for my daughter, is she going to be exposed to boys too early? Is she going to have to navigate some difficulties at 13, 14 years old that you just aren't mentally equipped to navigate at 13 and 14 years old? And like Patrice said, man, you don't have time for that. Like you got time to do your gymnastics, do your homework, and eat. That's it. And by the way, all of that was, and again, you guys all said it was all where you wanted to be, that you couldn't get enough. At 20 hours a week, you were coming to Parents Night Out, you were coming to Open Gym. And like, I wasn't at Parents Night Out coaching you. Like, I might have been at Parents Night Out doing Rocket Blaster or something, but I wasn't.
Contest.
Yeah, I wasn't like coaching gymnastics there. And I never worked Open Gym. You guys just came and did your own thing at Open Gym. And it was probably, when you were young, you were probably working on your gymnastics when you were there. And when you were older, you were probably just jumping on trampoline and having a good time. But that's trampoline's a part of gymnastics, and it makes it fun, and it's a foundational thing. The more time we spent on tramp, the better we got at bars. Crying out loud. All right, extraordinary childhood. I hesitate to do this, but we're going to do it because it's good. Let's move this podcast into a more humbling direction for me. I always want my shows to be a show where people can learn. And if I can if there's a 25-year-old Ken Harris out there somewhere who wants to be a good coach, really, well, because I wanted to be a good coach. I wanted us to be good at gymnastics. And I knew that there was more to being a good coach than just being good at gymnastics, that there was a relationship aspect. And I care about all of you guys, but I didn't have the tools. And I went to some places I wish I hadn't gone. And if I can share some of those places here, and there's a young Ken Harris listening who goes, oh man, I was thinking about going there, and then doesn't and chooses something else, I want this podcast to be that. So again, let's take it to a humbling place. And why don't we talk about a few of the mistakes that I made with you guys from the different eras and whatever. And let's frame this in a way where let's be real. Let's be authentic about the fact I'm acknowledging I made these mistakes. I know I did. I wasn't perfect. I hurt many of your feelings many times. But let's be prepared to talk about if we came to a resolution. Let's talk about how we got to resolution in my mistake. And if we didn't, let's acknowledge, hey, to this day, I still think you were a jerk about that thing and you never apologized. Like, hey, man, I'll apologize now. Let's talk about also what you learned from my mistake, and that what the lesson you learned might be like, hey, sometimes adults can let you down, and that's just real. People need to hear that. And then maybe we'll talk about what I learned from making those mistakes. So who wants to go first? We're going to save you for last.
I'll go first because got the first era of Coach Ken.
Yep.
So I think this was just a time where you had just built your gym and you just were very passionate about seeing the success and stuff of the gym. I think that we all knew you cared about us and valued us as gymnasts or athletes and stuff, but there were times where it just got a little intense, say it. There was some yelling.
Yeah.
A lot of yelling. But so what that taught me, and obviously I'm sitting here and we have a friendship and stuff now. So it's been resolved, obviously, but I just learned that especially adults that you really hold highly in your life, as a child, that their words mean a lot. Probably just more than the adult even realizes. And those words sometimes can stick with you for a long time. And as a child, you're already trying to figure out what you're how to talk to yourself, your inner voice and stuff. And when you hear, just somebody you value saying something that wasn't super productive, about you or your gymnastics or whatever, it's kind of how you start talking to yourself internally. And just my takeaway is that your words mean a lot, especially if you mean a lot to that person. And it's helped me, parenting and coaching. And it's just something that I have a temper and I need to kind of rein it in sometimes. And it's just another great lesson from gymnastics.
Yeah. I'd like to say, what I learned from yelling at you unnecessarily, but what can I learn from that? I guess what I learned for real as I matured was exactly what you said. Hey, I could see the countenance on Kate's face. I could see that I broke a little piece of this kid with what I just said. And by the way, it bothered me. And it took time and it took maturity for me to start doing that less and less. And we talked about this at lunch today. I've on this podcast before talked about having tools in the tool belt. And because I was young and didn't have very many tools, the thing I resorted to.
Well, it's just maddening when you can't help somebody that you want to so badly. So I get it because
it's not justification. It was wrong. I admit it was wrong.
At the same time, you have apologized. Even if you messed up and you realized it or something, you would sit us down and we would talk about it as a group or you did apologize. And that's another takeaway. Adults are human too, and they can make mistakes too. And that doesn't make it right, and it should happen to you over and over. But you can, accept their apology and learn from it. So,
but missing the football games, not going trick or treating,
not going skating,
skating, the things, and I can tell you for sure what I've learned from that, and that's just I was so serious. Oh, we got to be good. And I'm so serious about that, taking myself so serious that I honestly believed when I was that age, listen, if this kid misses one practice or leaves 2 hours early, her whole career is screwed. It's over. Well, here I am at 52 years old. And I go, it's fine. I used to, and you guys will know this. You won't. When these guys would go on vacations for the summer, I would look up a gym. I'd call the gym and say, I have this athlete that's going to be, if they went to Sarasota to the beach, I'd call a gym in Tampa and say, I've got this athlete, so can she work out? And then I'd hand you a workout that you needed to do while you were gone, because If you miss a week, forget it. You're going to be terrible. Like we ended up learning a great lesson, and we'll talk about this more. Shoot, you could take a year off, year and a half off, and come back and still win some championships. But I don't want to give it all away. But that was a lesson that took a long time. I had to stop taking myself so seriously. And I think a portion of that was insecurity. That I somewhere inside knew I wasn't that I was as good a coach as I thought I was. And if they miss any time at all, we're going to be bad and I'm going to be exposed. And then the other place where I think that came from, and I'm speaking to young coaches out here based on what I learned about myself, is I was so afraid all the time that any one of you would quit because I poured so much work into you that I thought, well, if this kid goes to a high school football game and likes the football game, they're going to quit gymnastics and I'm never going to get to see him again. And the reality was I was pushing you out the door by not allowing you to go out the door, right? That if I would have said, yeah, go to the homecoming football game. Don't go to them every Friday night. Like we have practice, be at practice, but you want to go to homecoming football game, have a good time, enjoy yourself. I was so much of a control freak. I didn't let you guys go trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
Now, to my credit, I would go to Sam's Club and buy cases of king-size Snickers and divide them up amongst the people who showed up for practice. So it's not like you didn't, you got candy, but you didn't get to wear a costume.
Tootsie Rolls?
You didn't get to.
Is that where that happened? The Tootsie Rolls?
Do you remember?
Oh, she got it. I think I know where this is going.
I wish I had a picture.
Oh, yeah, their pictures don't exist.
We 1 year all got together.
This was Diane Thorne's doing because she did our embroidery.
Decided we were all going to dress up like Coach Ken.
Yep, wearing polo shirts embroidered with ETC. They all had bald caps, but they didn't know. I found out.
I don't remember the rest of it.
How do you not remember? How are you not scarred from this? Because I put on a leotard shorts and a Snow White wig, and when you guys all walked in your Coach Ken costumes, I was like, surprise, Coach Ken, I'm here to do gymnastics.
There's not pictures.
That is why there are not pictures.
There,
In a leotard with a Snow White wig.
there might be a picture. It was twin day at the gym one time, and you wanted to twin with or triplet with Annabelle and I. So you borrowed a leotard and you put it on. Hey, you got a headband?
Did I? I know I twinned with Kenzie McIntyre, but she dressed like me and we drew a little goatee.
Yeah. Oh, that definitely happened. And I think we were all a little scarred, but we all had a really good laugh.
I'm certain if I was wearing a leotard, there was shorts
Yes,
on.
yes.
Very baggy shorts. No,
Yes.
but it had to be nonetheless gross. So, see, there's another thing I've got to apologize for. Putting on a leotard and making you look at it.
Not once, but twice.
Yeah.
Twice.
Well, she only had to see it once. She only had to see it. Well, in fact, she's repressed that memory. Go to therapy. It's coming out. Yeah. Heather, got anything where I made a mistake, you learned from it, or I learned from it, or?
I would say, like obviously, like coaches are gonna yell and like that's fine. Like I don't really like when you look up at your old medals, your trophies and stuff, like the yelling and the hard practices, that's not what you're gonna see. You're gonna look at a dusty old medal and like the moment that like you knew, like you stuck a landing, you stuck a vault, or you just saluted your last routine ever. It's the memories like that that you're going to remember. So for me, it was never really like the yelling. Like, sure, yeah, it bothered me.
I got you to that point where you got those medals.
I don't know who it wouldn't bother. Like, you'd have to be like not human. I don't know. But for me, it was probably when you retired and just walked out. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll say this about the yelling, as you call it. What you don't know is you don't know what yelling was. Well, in the day, yelling was personal. Like, because I thought well, if I make her feel bad enough, she'll do this gymnastics.
I think it was kind of coaching like to intimidate us to do
Yeah.
it instead of
And when I raised my voice, by the time you got around, and by the end of your career, I don't know that I was hardly ever raising my voice at all. But around you, it was never personal. It was always transactional isn't the right word. It was essentially like, hey, you need to get on the bar and take a turn. And in her day, it would have been a 3-minute lecture about how lazy you are, and you're going to get beat by everybody because you're lazy and you're no good. And this kid over here is good. Look at all the turns she's taking. You know, like it was
It
awesome.
wasn't always like that, though.
Yeah, but if it was once, it was too many times.
Fair enough.
And then the retirement thing, like you and I have had many conversations. I realize how much it hurt you that I did that. But for the record, for everybody else, I literally thought I was doing you and Annabelle a favor.
You made the comment about the pendulum swinging like one extreme kind of to another. I feel like that is kind of an accurate depiction of what happened.
Yeah, that for you, I happened to hire these fantastic, like Olympic level coaches from Brazil. And I'm just dumb old Ken Harris from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And I had these two very special athletes. And while I wanted to, in fact, when I hired them, a condition of their employment was that I got to keep coaching your group. And they were going to have to take the little guys and build them up. And they said yes. But here they are in the gym working with the little guys, and the little guys are getting really good. And I'm working tirelessly to just stay ahead of where you guys are. Like, you guys are this good at gymnastics, and I'm learning just enough stuff to get here. And as you guys are catching up here, I'm having to learn more and more. For real, I'm making phone calls 3 times a week. I'm spending hours on YouTube. I'm reading articles so that I can stay ahead. And by the way, I loved doing all that. That was a ton of fun. But what I thought was, this is so unfair. I honestly believed I was being selfish by keeping you and Annabelle away from coaches who didn't have to watch YouTube videos they were already here. And while you guys were here, and I was just here. And I thought, this is me being a selfish jerk. And it literally broke my heart. And I know we've told this story. The whole reason I got going into buying other gyms was because I couldn't come into mine, because it hurt me to watch you guys get coached by somebody else. So I've apologized before, but hey, I'm sorry again. I'm sorry to all of you. And now I'm especially sorry to Anna, who's going to talk about her thing. And it's going to be a smooth transition into our next topic. Go ahead.
So I think for me, as my injuries progressed and we got to the point where we were kind of starting to think my career in gymnastics is going to probably be fizzling out soon, I think, all I wanted to do was impress you and Coach Jennifer. I didn't want to tell you if my elbows were hurting, even though this was very much so like an overuse kind of injury that I was dealing with. And so I hid a lot of pain from y'all, from my parents. And I think a big part of that was because to me, I was Anna the gymnast. And when I was getting to the point where I saw that this was probably not going to be something I would be able to continue, I think I panicked in a sense and was like, well, if I'm not going to be Anna the gymnast, who in the world am I going to be? In the gym, I feel like I was praised for, whenever I would like learn new skills, or, if we went to a competition and I did really well, it's like I got that praise from my coaches that all of us long for. And then it was kind of the same thing at home. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and I was Anna the gymnast at home too. I was Anna that took most of our mom's time. She traveled with me everywhere to all my meets, all my doctor's appointments. And so it was just like a moment of panic for me of who am I going to be after this? Because I know that the end of my gymnastics career is coming. And I think you guys at the time very much so still saw me. I was, Anna, you're a gymnast. How are we going to get you, healed up and ready for next season? And, there came a point where I think you and Coach Jennifer started to really almost like protect me from myself. Y'all knew that this is how I was as a gymnast. You knew that I wasn't going to speak up and tell you if my elbows were hurting or, what was going on internally with me. And so I think to your credit, you started to structure my practices in that way to.
So this doesn't sound like, audience, like, oh, a mistake I made. But at lunch when we were talking about this today, Anna was trying to let me off the hook by saying what she's saying now. Hey, you did these wonderful things for me, and I'll let her continue in a minute. But what I said was the environment that causes you to believe you are Anna the gymnast, and that is your identity, and that is where your praise and your worth and your value comes from, is ultimately created by, and if not created by, the person responsible for it is the leader. And I was the leader. And not, of course, I wasn't intentionally creating an environment in which the only place you had self-worth was in gymnastics. But the old expression, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And the result, nonetheless, was this is how you felt. And this is actually a really good transition into a good segue into the next topic. And we're gonna get a little heady here for a minute. So let's talk. I know at various levels, the three of you at least went through some sort of identity crisis upon retirement. And actually, I discovered in this process, Heather went through a very short-lived one too, when she believed gymnastics was going to be over. And I had already tried to create a different environment where this isn't where you're getting your stuff. So let's just, basically my hope when I was coaching Heather in the Heather era, and even a little bit post you guys even, was that somebody like Heather didn't feel like I am Heather the gymnast, but rather I am Heather, the child of Christ, daughter of Jen and Greg Parker, an all-around terrific human being that just so happens to do gymnastics, not I am a gymnast, right? And I think this is a lesson for all coaches. I think it's important that athletes understand that doing gymnastics is just a small piece of who they are. That because our sport, especially when we reach optional levels, when we're 20 hours a week plus in a gym, it consumes so much of our time when we're young that our athletes often feel lost when the time comes for them to retire. And we, and I mean coaches, need to be reading more Allie Arnold books. She's got a terrific book about gymnasts and their identity. And I have a future guest scheduled for season 2. Her name is Teresa Kulikowski. She was an Olympic alternate. She has a book coming out pretty soon about gymnastics identity, or maybe she's already put the gymnastics identity book out there. And we as coaches need to really be reading these so we can help our athletes navigate this. So here's my deep question here. I want you all to think about this for a second before you answer. In your transition away from gymnastics, I've heard in our conference calls and our conversation at lunch today, and even through the years from you guys, because we're all, I'd argue we're close, right? That you've all had this common struggle of losing our identity. So do you want to talk a little bit about what it was like for you while you were going through it, and ultimately what helped you get through this identity crisis? And before you do, I'm going to be honest with all of you guys right now. I still, every once in a while, this is a true story, have dreams where I make a gymnastics comeback. So I don't know if it ever goes away entirely. Like, I know that sounds silly, but like in the last few months, I had a dream where I was and I was just making the comeback on rings and parallel bars. I wasn't even good at rings and parallel bars, but in my dream, suddenly I was good and I was making the comeback. So talk to me about a little bit about your own individual identity crises and what it was like going through there, and ultimately what helped you get to the other side if you got to the other side.
Well, I would say for me, after retiring from gymnastics, my crisis ended up being I just stuck around the gym. I started coaching right off the bat. It started with like 4 hours a week to, coaching team at some point, and still being there to this day.
Yeah, you and I found a loophole,
Yeah.
right? I
You
was,
lose your family. You're still there. Like,
yeah,
part of it. Like,
Yeah. And
I started coaching
Mhm.
as soon as I stopped competing, and then I opened a gym, and so I'm still doing it.
Exactly. I didn't
It's still my
to
identity.
lose touch with you and Jennifer. I talk to Jennifer on the phone like every day just for work stuff, but it also ends up personal every time we talk. So I did find a loophole. I'm still in crisis, I guess.
Okay. Do you have those dreams? Do you ever have a dream that like, and it's not like I dream like, oh, I'm back in high school and I'm doing gymnastics. I know in my dream I'm 52 freaking years old, but somebody hand me some ring grips. Let me get up there and bust out an iron cross.
Yeah, no, I don't have those dreams.
Okay.
I do.
I do.
I feel like that's also like just like the way that we're wired though. Like we've done this one thing our whole lives, and like going back to what we talked about earlier, like we didn't know like anything else. Like that's who we were. I know that you just said that it's exactly the point is that we're not like we're so much more than our sport. But growing up, like we're always in the gym. We're always flipping. We're always showing off to our friends because we think it's cool, and they can't do it, and we can.
Yeah, I'm 52, and people will still ask me, "Can you do a backflip?" I'm like, "How fast can you dial 911?" Because I'm pretty sure I can do one, but I'm gonna need an ambulance.
I felt resentment towards
Mhm.
gymnastics, but even like taking that a little bit further, like I didn't like hard work. I didn't like making plans and goals and sacrifices. Like I kind of like was so bitter because I had to quit before I was ready and stuff. Like I felt like I was told like I had to quit. Like,
Well, in a sense, the universe told you, like, "Hey, your knees can't do this anymore,"
yeah.
and you didn't want to. Your head and your heart could not come to grips with that.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, I was just heartbroken and I did resent all those things. And I think for years, I like kind of just didn't want, I was just like rebelling against gymnastics. And honestly, I was like that bitter ex-girlfriend that like, I still wanted gymnastics, but like it wouldn't have me, like, so I was just like gonna, trash the sport, like badmouth it and stuff. But that's not how I truly felt. And honestly, like I was so lost. Just because like you have this huge void inside of you, it feels like when you have something that you are constantly working towards, constantly thinking about, and then it's just all of a sudden gone. Those people are gone. You're just, and it's just, I think, like I said earlier, also, it taught me so much about how to handle difficult situations or when I find myself in a spot where I don't want to be, just to kind of regroup and like figure out how to carry on.
So ultimately, how'd you get through? How'd you get to the other
I
side?
need structure. I know that I need to get through something. I need to get myself busy. I need to find a new diving was my thing actually. So I just focused on training for college for diving and stuff.
So we talked a little bit at lunch, and we were trying to figure some things out. And what we were talking about is both of my kids did very high level athletics. My daughter was a D1 scholarship athlete at a like top 10 university and whatever. And they both did high level gymnastics for that. And neither one of them went through this sort of identity crisis. And what I would like to do is sit on this show and tell everybody, well, I'm such a great parent. We navigated this. But to be honest, I got no idea. I don't know what the recipe is, but I know you didn't battle an identity crisis. I know Mackenzie and Hunter, my children, didn't battle an identity crisis. I know you went through, maybe even are still going through a heck of a one. And you went went through one, and again, we never really lost contact. We've been in contact the whole time.
Common denominator though is that y'all never like physically were removed from the gym. Not like, but
Yeah.
not being there, that y'all were still there with those people and stuff. And so I feel like it wasn't
So like Mackenzie
such a
and
big
Hunter,
loss.
still had to go to the gym even when they weren't doing gymnastics. Maybe, okay.
You didn't lose those important people to you. And I think
It's like family.
Sure. I say this all the time. And when you guys were doing gymnastics, I spent way more waking hours with you than your good fathers did. It was just a part of the sport, which is why I always felt like some sort of duty to talk to you guys about difficult stuff. Like we talked about boys and life and taxes, Heather, right?
And stuff.
That's right, it is. Because I felt like if I'm cheating your dads out of an opportunity to pour these things into you, I'm going to sneakily drip it in there.
just y'all didn't get, taken away from the gym. Like, or you didn't lose that part, like, or those people. Or if you did, it was more gradual maybe. Or I don't know.
I mean, that's true for me too, I guess. I mean, you gave me opportunities to stay around the gym. You offered to let me, coach and stuff, but I ultimately did not end up sticking around. And it was like a sense of losing family. I didn't want to leave the sport. It was against my will,
Sure.
kind of.
Yeah, you and Kate both.
Yeah.
Like the universe said, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Like,
And I think kind of what I said earlier, I found so much value in all of my value that I saw in myself was by accomplishments. And I was like, well, I don't know what else I'm going to be good at from here, but I don't think I got out of that until I realized that gymnastics was just a season of my life.
mhm.
And I went on to be good at many other things in life.
You guys all think that part of the reason we go through this identity crisis is that we end up loving the sport and all the stuff that it does for us so much that we just can't accept that it was just a season. Like who wants, like,
It's hard to explain to other people.
And you can't, it's impossible to replace.
it is. You're 100% right. Coaching has never filled the void left by competing.
Mhm.
And I'm a way better coach than I ever was as an athlete. And I'm not even that good of a coach. Right? Like, but there's something about preparing for a gymnastics meet, competing in that gymnastics meet that just, it gets in your blood and you can't get it out.
But I get my point. I don't think that it was something I was able to get through until I was very much so on the other side of it. Like, just like Kate, it was devastating for me whenever I was forced to quit. And I went through a big identity crisis, maybe still am. But to be able to go on to find new skills, new hobbies, new things that I could be equally as good at and be successful in, I think that was when I was able to really like separate myself from being Anna the gymnast. I was now Anna the athlete, maybe, but didn't have to continue just focusing on gymnastics alone.
But was that a struggle too? Kind of like you have this void that you're trying to fill and you're trying to find another sport. And even if you're exceptional at it and you get high school awards and everything for soccer, like it's not as cool. And it's not going to give you like that high kind of that. I think it's just a struggle of finding, like, you can find things to keep yourself busy, but ultimately there's nothing like gymnastics. And I don't feel like I even like really found myself again until I had kids. And then I'm Kate the mom, and I think
Can't wait.
Truly, that was the first time after gymnastics that I was like 100% effort. I'm all in. I think I was like hesitant, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket, like I don't want to like have this awesome plan and like completely devote to it because I was scared. it didn't work out for me the first time. So,
Mm.
but when I had kids, I think it just totally proves that like that's something you can put your all into.
Who has a story where they think maybe me or probably Jennifer got it right, where we handled a situation or something really well, and you benefit from that? Tell us about it, and maybe even tell us how it impacts you today, if it does.
Well, I mentioned earlier, I moved here from Georgia. I was very young and did not feel like I was a good gymnast. And very quickly, I feel like you guys gave me a new home. And you say it all the time, love the unlovables. And at that moment, I felt like I was one of those people because I wasn't picked to be at that higher, more competitive gym, or higher level, I should say, that my sister was. So for me, coming here and you making that decision to love me the same way that you loved everyone else, I still feel that to this day.
Mm.
So you got that right.
Thanks. I get anything else right with anybody else?
This is a hard question for me because I feel like y'all did so many things right. I don't even know what to pick. Like, you made mistakes, but there were so many more positives than, I mean, we wouldn't be sitting here today. Like, I wouldn't have, driven across states to see you get your little award at state,
Yeah,
like.
for the record audience, one of my very first athletes, where I was most hard with, when I was inducted to the Hall of Fame, drove with her kid, I don't know how many hours, to come to this stupid ceremony. It wasn't a stupid ceremony. I'm honored, but it lasted like 3 minutes,
But like,
right? And she drove all the way just to see that. So
I wanted to give you your high five. Like, you gave us high fives, like our, entire
and it meant
gymnastics
a
career.
ton that
That was the one time I could give you like a high five.
sweet. So to paraphrase, because we talked about this at lunch before we came today, one of the things that you said that Jennifer and I did really well is, despite some of the junk I brought to the table, you said you always knew we loved you.
Yeah.
That we cared, and
y'all were very passionate and wanted to succeed, and so there were moments where I think it got too intense, but yes, we all, no matter through any of that, we all always felt loved. Yeah. And I think we all wanted to do great for you, we wanted to.
It felt kind of just the same way if you felt like you let your parents down and they were
Exactly
yelling at you and you knew you deserved it.
But we valued you. We had y'all on these pedestals because, it was a mutual feeling. Y'all loved us, we loved you. It was just, always felt that way.
I think for me, thinking about when I was transitioning out of gymnastics, I mentioned that you did allow me to coach. I actually coached, probably 3 different times at the gym. And I just, I wish I would have loved it, but I didn't.
Coaching team is a lot better than.
I think I coached level 4s.
Did you?
I think for a little while you were helping me.
Yeah.
Well, I went down and took a little group.
My mom actually, I sent you an email the other day. She sent me another email that's literally me emailing you saying, Coach Ken, do you want me to come help out with the level 4s again? I just got my license.
Well, maybe when you have kids on team, it'll kind of.
I had to mean something to your mom because she saved emails for 10 or 12 years and still keeps them and treasures them.
Many things that have, brought me to tears over the last couple of months, just in a positive way. Just
okay, all right. I'm like, hey, I'm still making this girl cry.
It's an important time in my life, and I value the relationship that I have with you and Coach Jennifer still to this day. All of my teammates. It feels weird to be 31 years old, thinking back to a time
when you were 7.
I quit when I was 15, and I still get emotional about it. So I think that says something to the sport and just what it means to the gymnasts that are in it. So I think you made the transition for me. Y'all tried to keep me plugged into your family, even though my body was not allowing me to continue gymnastics.
We tried to keep you around at the gym so you didn't have to go cold turkey, even though gymnastics wouldn't have you.
And I tried diving with Coach Jennifer. And even to this day, I still look at y'all as, mentors to me. With about a year ago, I bought a house and Coach Jennifer's doing real estate now. So there was a time where I was getting to meet up with her several times a week, and it's just like a different chapter, but it's so nice to have those relationships still, and that y'all made it so we could keep that intact over the years, that I didn't have to lose all of it. I got to keep y'all.
Well, we feel the same, like that we get to keep you guys because we said this a little bit at lunch too. I'm a relational coach. There are plenty of very good coaches out there that are just X's and O's people. And it's just gymnastics and it's just business. Now, those people probably don't yell a lot because they're not emotionally invested. If on a Tuesday night, a random Tuesday night, I put a message on Facebook that said, we're going to have a reunion at ETC and I'm going to serve pizza Friday night, I'd have people from 4 or 5 different states driving in Friday night to get pizza, and there'd be 100 kids there. And I need to do one because we haven't done one in a little while. But the last one we did, I have a group picture somewhere in my office, and there's like 100 boys team, girls team, and people from every single era. People driving from states away just to be at that thing.
Well, that just kind of solidifies what we just said. Is that
well, it's super. I
speaks volumes.
Thank you for saying those nice things. I did make a bunch of mistakes, but we talked about this before the show started. Your daughter was our first legacy. In other words, the first kid of a kid we coach was your daughter. And when Jennifer and I started out, one of the things we said, because we have a family motto, because we're cheesy, and our family motto is everything we do on purpose turns out better than anything we do accidentally. So when we went to open a gym, and we were all team-minded when we first opened, one of our purposes, one of the things we said we wanted to accomplish is that we want a gymnastics experience such that the kids who take gymnastics from us not only want their kids to take gymnastics, but if they live anywhere near Murfreesboro, they want their kids to take at ETC. And now the place is like full of little legacies running around, and it's really great. I have some kids that I coached at Let It Shine that live in Murfreesboro, and their kids take it ETC and whatever these days. And to us, that's like mission accomplished. That this is how we know that while we made mistakes, if you put the mistakes we made over on this end of a scale and then put the good we did on this end of the scale, the good is much heavier, because I know plenty of high-level gymnasts who have children who won't put their kids in gymnastics at all, and sure as heck wouldn't put them in gymnastics with the people that were their coaches because it wasn't good. So thanks for saying the kind things. All right, let's take a few minutes right now and talk about how gymnastics has positively influenced your lives. I want you to talk about maybe how it's influenced your lives personally, maybe professionally, like in terms of your careers, and maybe even your hobbies.
So I think gymnastics teaches many lessons, but a theme throughout all that we've said is it really teaches you to be really driven and self-disciplined. You have to manage your time, all these things that carry on into adulthood to make for a successful adult. And I credit a lot of what I've accomplished in adulthood to the lessons and skills that I learned as a gymnast at a very young age. And, now I am working as a nurse practitioner, and the company that I work for now, the mission of this company is to help people do more of what they love. And what that looks like day to day for me is working with very high level athletes like we were, and mainly Heather. But working with athletes.
Because we're all high-level athletes. Listen, all right, I'm going to interrupt you. You're going to come back to this thought. But statistically, 70,000 kids start at level 3, our USA Gymnastics level 3s every year. Do you know how many of those kids make it to level 9? About 3,700. But what's that, 5%? Do you know how many of those make level 10? It's like 1,800. So now we're down to like 2%. And that make elites, it's less than 100. So if you were working your way up to through level 9, you're in the top 5% of all gymnasts. And if you did level 10, you're in the top 2%. And if you qualified partially elite, you're in the top like 0.0 something percent. So don't downplay what you did.
Awesome.
You are definitely awesome.
Cool.
All right.
You're so awesome.
But it almost feels like my life has come full circle now because I'm seeing athletes like we were that are looking to improve recovery so that they can stay in their sport longer, and I get to coach and mentor them through that and help them come up with a plan to do so. And it's rewarding to see all of the little invisible strings throughout life that have led me to where I am, because I do think gymnastics makes you very passionate about health and wellness, because you have to be, really.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah. But I think that's
one of the things you told me at
things.
lunch today that I thought was really cool was you said, and I want to get this quote right, if you can do gymnastics at a high level, you can do anything.
Something of this. I feel like gymnastics really equipped me to be successful in life, like I said. But I think
What about gymnastics did that?
I think it just taught me those skills and made me really resilient at a very young age. Dealing with things that other kids our age did not deal with.
How many? First of all, even if we don't talk about your setbacks, how many 10-year-old kids are able to keep their eye on a prize that is years away, right? And then can go ahead and accept the very difficult steps that they must take now for not very much reward, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, like, one of the reasons such a high percentage of my former athletes are in the medical field is because of gymnastics, right? You can...
I agree. I went to school for 7 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think gymnastics helped me to achieve that goal. That was like a long-term goal, but also made me interested in that goal in the first place, especially with how the path my gymnastics career took is ultimately why I ended up in healthcare.
I like how you keep using euphemisms for it, because you can't even it affects you so much to this day. You can't even say like my injuries, my broken elbows, my OCD. You keep saying nice things for it instead.
There was a lot of injuries. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, you're not wrong. It's like telling that it still affects you.
I think the past couple of weeks of us talking about this will be telling.
Yeah.
There's been some emotional conversations.
Digging all of it up.
Kate, how does having been a gymnast, how does it positively impact your life personally, in your career, in your hobbies?
Well, I mean, it shaped me completely. But I have a grooming business, and I was 23.
Entrepreneur.
But yeah, it just gave me the confidence to
take a risk.
Take a calculated risk, take on big projects, make a plan and execute it. I think it's made me a better parent.
Why do you think gymnastics enables us to take risks when we're adults?
Gymnastics in general is one big risk.
Yeah, totally agree.
Totally
agree.
Physical risk, but I mean,
I like the phrase you used. You said calculated risk, because if you have a halfway decent coach, all the risks that you're constantly taking are calculated, right? You go through the drills, you do it in a safer environment than a slightly...
process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were able to start a business.
Mm-hmm. And my dad helped me with this, and he said, I will help you build it. I'll give you the sweat, and labor and everything, but you have to make a business plan. And it was funny that my exit strategy was my thing, that I really got stuck on, because you need a backup plan. I don't hate gymnastics anymore, but you need what happens if my business fails, or if my bus breaks down because I was a mobile groomer, Or if I just don't have the customers, I'm going to sell it and I can still profit. I can get out and I'll be okay. Like I won't ever be stuck again,
A gymnast's sort of backup plan doesn't need to be like, okay, if I quit, I can go play soccer. It
Yeah.
essentially needs to
You're
be,
still going to feel lost.
yeah,
It's not filling the void.
it essentially needs to be when I retire from the sport, not if, because there is a shelf life to gymnastics.
Yeah.
I will be okay.
Yeah.
And you just need to know that from the beginning. And again, Doc Alley and I have been talking back and forth. I'm trying to get her to come on the podcast, but I think she'd be fantastic to have on here and help us talk to coaches about how to navigate.
Yeah. My one stipulation for Hattie going on team and stuff is that she had to play at least one other sport. Like if she wanted to, like I would.
Hattie is her youngest daughter who
Yeah.
is currently doing team in North Carolina.
Yeah. So she plays soccer and she.
Wait, do you want to give a shout out to the gym?
Osega.
Osega.
Yeah. It's
Let's
awesome.
go. Miles Avery.
Yeah. And I'm also very fortunate to get to learn from him. But just I wanted her and we've really put a heavy emphasis on hobbies. Because even if you get that dream, college career and stuff, you're still going to have a moment where you quit. So if you have hobbies, you like to hike, you like to kayak, you like to surf, or I don't know, horseback ride or something. I think having healthy hobbies is a huge thing too. And I think maybe that's one thing that we didn't quite get.
So hard to foster healthy hobbies when you're doing gymnastics at a high level, because where do you find the time? But I think you're right. I think maybe good parents will find the time to start. And you can say to your, because I had one of these, like your gymnastics obsessed little girl,
Mhm.
because that's what Mackenzie was. We never wanted her to do team, for crying out loud. You can say, hey, we're going to have this little hobby. We won't let the hobby interfere. Don't worry.
Mhm.
You won't ever have to miss gymnastics for
Yeah.
this hobby, because my daughter would have thrown fits. But we're also not going to take this hobby right now to any extreme at all. We're just going to do it because it's fun. And then if the universe tells you no gymnastics for you, which it told both of you, then you have this hobby already there that maybe you can start pursuing at a higher level.
Even in the best case scenario, when you quit, you can't go out and play a round of gymnastics with somebody.
Nope.
Go to open gym.
I always say the
You
best
just-
evidence for the fact that gymnastics is the world's most difficult sport is you can go in neighborhoods across the United States and see pickup games of basketball, pickup games of football, pickup games of baseball.
Mhm.
When was the last time you drove through a neighborhood and there was a pickup gymnastics meet? There'll never be one.
Yeah.
How are you going to do that? Right?
Going off of the hobbies thing, I feel like a big part of the reason why that's so important is because we all start gymnastics obviously because we love it, but it gets to this point where we love it so much it becomes a way for us to escape from stresses of our lives, and it's just a way to
It's our
escape.
coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And suddenly if you have a midlife crisis,
You're
and
lost, and then you've lost your coping mechanism.
yeah,
That's serious.
if you lose gymnastics, I'm oh my God, I've lost everything. And I feel like that's a huge part of the reason why we have that identity crisis thing, is because we've lost our coping mechanism and now we don't know what to do.
I've never even thought about it like that.
Obviously my career is not ended yet, but it has taught me a tremendous amount. It's shaped me into the person
It's paying for your education.
it sure is.
Yeah, that's a positive impact.
Yeah. But discipline, is there's so many things that I could be doing, but I'm so happy with where I am right now. And I'm so
Mm.
thankful that I have that and that I have gymnastics, because I know a lot of a normal college student is not doing the same things that athletes or gymnasts are
Yep.
and stuff. And it just teaches you so many great things.
Patrice, what about you?
I mean,
How's having done gymnastics impacting your life?
well, for me, I have tried to stay healthy and active through my whole, college career, after college. And so after being a gymnast and then a cheerleader, I've had to find other ways to stay active.
Yeah, all four of you have your physical health and wellness at the forefront of your focus,
Yeah.
right? It's something that's stayed with you. We made jokes about this at lunch about like if we lined you up against your peers, to this day, the most fit are you guys. Like you're in the top percentile of fit because gymnastics gave you some tools.
Yeah. And in a healthy way of knowing
Yes.
how to feel my body. If I know like, okay, I haven't been working out here lately, I need to get back to it. I already know the process or the steps I need to take as far as like, well, I need to start drinking more water if I haven't been doing that, or even like how I eat. If I'm like, I had a bad, I'm not going to go and do like a workout, I'm going to try to start fresh.
Sure, but when you go a couple weeks without working out, it's not, you don't say to yourself, oh no, I have to do a workout. You go, man, I miss it.
No, yeah.
I need to work out.
Yeah. Yes.
Reset button.
Yeah, during my pregnancy, I was told that I wasn't allowed to work out. And so now, coming out of that, even like the 6 weeks you're not supposed to work out after having a baby, I was just like itching to find a way to work out. And so starting to be able to go on walks with my dog, which I was told I wasn't allowed to do anymore, was just so exciting to me. And now being 5 months out and able to like really work out, I got a Peloton. I bought it for my brother, so I can
A bike?
Yeah,
Spin bike?
yeah,
I
a
love
bike.
that.
So that I could work out again. And my husband's putting together our gym garage, which
Oh, I'm coming over.
yeah, it's actually coming out really. It's
Yeah, if Jason builds it, it's going to be spectacular.
yeah, but just working out that has become or has been my hobby, but I'm slowly getting back into making it like a daily routine for me.
So for me, like having been a gymnast, and I seriously wasn't very good at gymnastics, but gymnastics is still a part of my life, and understanding training it's really done. First of all, it's enabled me to be a successful entrepreneur in no small part because of what we talked about being able to set or being forced to set long-term goals and taking tiny incremental steps. As you go along, you can make course adjustments because the steps are tiny, but those aren't things like you just don't get. I know, like my son was a very good football player and a very good soccer player for his school and whatever, and had opportunities to do those things in college. He didn't get any, like, sure, we have a long-term goal. We want to win a championship, but like, it's the same. It's the same. The game of football is the same every year.
You're just perfecting it.
Yeah. And the game of gymnastics is different every year because once you get it, you got to get the next thing and then the next thing and the next thing. And Tom Forster and I talked about that on his episode. So a relentless pursuit of perfection is something I have gotten from gymnastics. And another way that
elevate and perfect, like it's
yes,
not just perfecting.
Yeah. Oh, that's even better. Where I think that's benefited me in my personal life is I've said this a number of times, I'm 52 years old. And I have never said to my wife, well, that's just the way I am. Or said to my children, well, that's just the way I am. Because if it's the way I am and if it isn't great, then it's time for me to work on that and be better. And 5 years ago, I weighed 30 pounds more than I weigh now because the first time I retired, I got a little carried away. And I didn't say, well, I'm 45 years old or whatever, and 45-year-old guys just get a fat belly. I said, man, I'm 45 years old and I have a fat belly. This sucks. What do I need to do about this? I started working on how I was eating. I started working out and knowing that like 3 weeks after starting this, I'm going to get on the scale and not see much change. I'm going to take off my shirt and look in the mirror and not see much change. But it has been transformational. And that's true of my attitude toward like being a husband to Jennifer, being a father to Hunter and Mackenzie. And my kids are 24 and 22 years old. Do I really have to worry about being a father? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I'm
gymnasts ever stop trying to level up in any aspect of their life.
Yes, that's the way to say that.
Because we I mean, that was the what we strive for, like always in gymnastics. And I don't know about, I feel like we're all the same, like looking at your business, like how it's doing, always
Yep.
trying to make it better. But I feel like I'm coachable. If my husband says I need to, or you were wrong here or there, I'm like, okay.
Did gymnastics not also teach us that to be coachable, right?
To make corrections.
Yes, that in our relationships, whether it's with our spouses, our children, our friends, like to accept constructive criticism.
And never staying stagnant. I don't think any of us would be okay with just the status quo. I think just always striving for
Wow,
better.
Kate, way to take the stuff I was thinking and put it into words.
ADHD that
Yeah.
puts people off.
Yeah.
Ends their sentences.
No,
for
you
them.
nailed it. Those of you with kids, that's Kate, who's got a couple of them, Patrice, who just had one. And I guess you guys can chime in because you're an auntie, and one day, like, you might be able to wrap your head around this. Do you think gymnastics has had a positive effect on your ability to be a good parent? Why or why not?
Yes, of course. I mean, it just, everything we've already touched on, I don't want to be too redundant, but like it just shapes you into the type of person that, I think is a good parent. Like you have plans, you strive to be a good parent. And I don't know. I guess that wasn't a very good answer.
I think it's a great answer. I think, like, as a coach, right? I was training Heather to be a high-level gymnast when she was little and not high-level, right? As a parent, I was training my children to be high-level functioning members of society, right? And the principles are the same. And here I took the time to outline a few principles. First,
Of course you did.
yeah, of course I did. Just like the old workout books, I came prepared. First, you need to be proactive, not reactive. That makes a good parent. So we don't wait till our kids are on drugs to go, oh my gosh, drugs are bad, let's get in rehab. We are teaching our children before they ever are exposed to drugs, like, hey, don't take drugs, right? To think, being a good gymnastics coach has taught me to think before I respond. Now, you were in the respond first era. Sorry about that again. But I mean, we literally acknowledged.
So just maturing as a human, I feel like, because I know I can be reactive just with my kids sometimes, but I feel like the more I am in this parenting game, like.
Yeah, and the more you're in this coaching game, the more you'll be like, oh, the more time I need to spend thinking before I respond.
Like, I think that's just parenting and coaching.
Okay, so a lesson I learned that I think is good for parenting is children, and this is actually true for adults, love predictable outcomes. Be predictable, right? So all you have to do is, I say all you have to do, like it's simple, follow this and your kids will be great. Like my kids are great despite me, not because of me. Is you have to clearly define your expectations and clearly define consequences for failing to meet those expectations and clearly define rewards for exceeding those expectations. Your kid needs to be able to predict. Like, you can't just say, shout ups, turn off that TV or I'm going to come up there and beat your A. Like, well, how's the kid going to predict that? Because Tuesday night they were watching TV and you didn't come upstairs and beat their A, right? Like, explain in advance, hey, when I put you to bed at 9:00, TV is off, phones are plugged in the kitchen, and my expectation is that the lights are off and you're trying to fall asleep. Like sometimes you can't fall asleep, but you're not going to be watching TV. And if you turn on the TV, I'm going to come upstairs, I'm going to take the TV away and you're not going to have a TV in your bedroom. My kids never had TVs in their bedrooms, but that's just an example. Like let them be able to predict what's going to happen. Use failure as a learning opportunity, right? When you missed a Jaeger, we didn't just go, you're terrible, you're missing Jaegers. We said, hey, let's talk about why could your fingers not even touch the bar, right? Oh, well, because I tapped way too early, or likely I didn't tap at all. Well, didn't tap at all meant we were going to pull and you were going to land on the bar. But right? So It's the same when being a parent. When your kid messes up, hey, let's talk about what you just messed up here and how we can avoid messing up in the future. Be consistent, right? I can't. One day I've seen gymnastics coaches that are like this. I'm not going to name any names, but I've worked in a gym where a coach comes in, they haven't done conditioning for 2.5 months. And the coach is like, we're not strong enough to do anything. And like all night we're just conditioning. And then the kids can't walk for 3 days because everything on their body hurts. Like just be the same person, which goes hand in hand with being predictable, giving kids predictable outcomes. And then the last thing I'll say that gymnastics taught me that relates to being a good parent is I should continue to learn and grow, because what the better Heather and Annabelle got, the better I had to get to stay ahead of these guys. And I think that's true. We should, like, are we ever the perfect parent? Like, I think we probably aren't. So why should we stop learning about that? Anybody have any stuff they want to add to my list? Or
Just the structure that gymnastics provided for me
yeah,
helped me so much as a child.
good
And
point. How did that not make the list? What an idiot.
I think that's what you were saying. So it's just, yeah, I'm elaborating. It's just, I think structure helps me so much as a child. And I think it has helped me parent.
Yeah, I think what I learned so early on was time management.
Oh, good one.
That's been kind of a struggle with a newborn, or it's 5 months, so he's not as new.
Tummy time.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
And to go to the doctor and be told, like, hey, he's 3 months old. It looks like he needs to do a little bit more tummy time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't been doing enough tummy time. And so now it's like, okay, the things I'm focused on during the day where I could be doing the tummy time have got to wait until at night when he is asleep. So instead of trying to get a lot of my work done during the day, now I am trying to focus on making sure that he gets some of those developmental things in to
And
help.
you're still getting your work done. I'm her boss, so I know she is getting her work done.
It looks a little different these days.
Because you are effectively managing your time.
And I felt like, not enough time in the day. I need to make more time. I can't go to bed at 10 o'clock. I might be working as dad is, my husband is putting him to sleep. I'm then taking that time to work. And so it looks a little different now, but I am taking what I've learned of time management and putting it to work with my son.
And I think this just flew past my head because, like, it's so obvious. Gymnastics has helped me parent because my kids, I hope they're always involved in sports or activities. And when things get tough for them, I can, resonate with that. Like,
yeah, you're relatable.
Yes, like when Hattie comes home and she's like, my coach was a butt to me or whatever. I'm like, tough beans, buddy. Like, that's how sports are sometimes. Like, like
it's very relatable. Tough beans.
Well, and I'm also her coach.
So your kid comes home and says, Mom, you were a butt to me.
But I mean, like, it's helped me parent because, like, I'm on the same page. Like, I've been there, I've done it. Like, I feel for you. Like, yeah, I don't know. Just being a part, obviously, just being a part of gymnastics, like, helps me help them in sports and stuff.
2 of you are parents already, but 2 of you, we hope, will be one day. If you have kids, or since you have kids, would you sign your kids up for team gymnastics? And would you sign them up if Coach Ken was their coach? Patrice.
Well, I have a boy, so
let's pretend you had a daughter.
Okay, then yes, absolutely. I have said that for years and years that when I would become a mother of a daughter, I would definitely put my daughter in gymnastics.
So you twisting Jordan's arm, so little Tatum.
I am, and I'm teaching her a lot of things. That
sounds like in like 10 years, old Kenny boy coming out of retirement.
Yeah, and that's the plan. So I've been trying to teach her different, skills that a 2-year-old can do, but so that she would grow the love for gymnastics and can't wait to go to gymnastics on Saturday mornings when she's in town, because they're traveling back and forth for gymnastics at ETC because Jordan will not take Tatum anywhere else.
That's my girl.
Yeah, and if they can't get the time in, I'm doing a private lesson or
she needs that forward roll.
She's got to get her forward.
Jordan is like getting onto her, like, come on, Patrice.
Got to get that forward.
Please, her forward roll.
Goodness. Jordan is Patrice's sister, and Patrice's sister has a daughter, Tatum, who is almost 2 or
She's 2.
okay.
Yes. So she's in gymnastics now, and we love it. We love it for her. She loves it.
I love it because Tatum has the same facial expressions as Jordan does. And every time I see Tatum make a face that I used to get all the time from Jordan, I'm like, oh, you're going to give that to your mommy, and I love it. Headers, if you had a daughter, would you sign her up for gymnastics, and would you let Coach Ken be her coach?
Coach Ken would be her only coach.
Okay.
He'd have to be her only coach.
Okay, very funny.
And Tweety.
Okay.
Obviously, yes. I would.
Yeah, your kids already did.
I said that I would never, but I mean, yeah, it's just.
I think there's a chance that Coach Ken is responsible for Reese getting back involved in gymnastics, because when you guys came to town for the
walkover, like,
and then she was like, I love gymnastics. Let's go.
Yeah. And yeah, team gymnastics. She went back to the gym and got in the group and stuff. And yes, I wish that you could coach my kids. I'm honestly so bummed. And every time I have, like, all of my friends on Facebook and stuff that are still in Murfreesboro that have kids and posting pictures of their kids at ETC, and I'm like, just, that's my coach. Like, that's my gymnastics. I want my kids to go there. Like, I'm so jealous.
Yes. I hope and pray that I have a daughter so that she can do gymnastics. And
would you let me be her coach?
You said you would come out of retirement.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's real. Well, I'm certain that's real because I love my legacies. The problem is your kids ain't going to be as good as you because I'm going to be handing them all Tootsie Rolls and lollipops, and we're going to play games, and we're just going to have a good time. We're going to be terrible at gymnastics, but we can have a lot of fun. That's what it's going to be.
I think in the grand scheme of things, though, I think of it like gymnastics gave me far more than I feel like it ever took from me. And for that reason, like, of course I would want that for my kids one day. And I hope and pray that I can have a little girl that is interested in it.
Okay, girls, I always close out with my guests with sort of the same 3 questions, 2 are time machine questions. Let's start with the first one. The first one is, if you could go back in time and undo any one decision you've ever made, what would it be? Kate.
Don't get the tattoo.
Good advice, Kate. Good advice.
Tattoos aren't cool.
I think if I could go back in time, if we're relating it to gymnastics, but for me, it would be my senior year of high school when I made my comeback to gymnastics after retiring. I would have maybe not given up so easily because I really wanted to be a college gymnast.
And you really could have been.
Yeah. And I just wish I would have just held on a little tighter instead of getting so anxious about going to college and something new. I definitely would have continued doing gymnastics. So I could have finished out my career as a college gymnast and got my student debt paid for because I'm still paying for it.
Yikes. All right, Heather, I know you haven't been on Earth as long as the rest of us, but if you could go back in time and undo any one decision, what would it be?
I'm not sure if it's any one decision other than if I was relating this to gymnastics. I would just tell myself not to take everything so, like, seriously or personally. Like, if I fell on a skill, like, I'd be like, I'd probably beat myself up for it because I was so mad. Like, I shouldn't miss a back handspring on beam if I'm warming up for a series because I'm warming up for my series. That's like the base skill. But like
a little bit of that made you who you were because you would get ticked at the beam and then get up there and teach the beam a lesson.
Mhm.
Like, oh, you think I'm falling again? Think again. There's a whole earthquake there and you're like, not today.
But I guess it did turn me into who I am, and I'm grateful for it. But there were some days that I was like, okay, maybe I should have told myself that.
Anna, if you could undo any one decision.
Related to gymnastics.
Doesn't have to be related to gymnastics. She did tattoos. How many times we got to go over?
2 tattoos I regret too.
See?
Okay, well, you
don't get tattoos.
you can't steal hers then. Undo something else.
I think I probably would have been a little bit more honest with how much pain I was in with you guys, because I do think in the long run it might have given me more time in gymnastics.
Yeah.
More time with my friends, more time in sport.
What's one decision I made with you that I would undo? And Kate, I said that I would have handled your fear a lot differently. I would have been a lot more patient with it. And the crazy thing is, like, if you, Caitlin Hatcliffe, whatever you were, 10 years old when you walked into ETC the first time, walked into ETC now, or even a few years ago with, say, 49 or 50-year-old Coach Ken, none of your fears would have been a problem. They wouldn't have stuck around. I have so many more tools now. It would be easy. It's just par for the course. We'd have all that fixed. Patrice, I would have let you go to high school football games and convinced you to stick around and do college gymnastics because you were good enough. So we sort of have the same thing. Anna, I would have done a better job with your injuries early on. And most importantly, I would have found a way to make sure that you knew you were more than just a gymnast, because it hurts me to see you hurt over that. And then Heather, I wouldn't have retired. And I'm not just giving you that nugget. Knowing all I know about what transpired in the year immediately after that and the couple of years since then, we have great coaches. They really are great. They're doing it the right way. The gymnastics is better than it's ever been at ETC Gymnastics. And again, they're doing it the right way. But it wasn't right for you and Annabelle because you guys were already into your teens and I had already sort of programmed you. What was right for you was me. And sorry about that. I did not want to go buy another gym and do all those things, but here we are and here you are. The next time machine question is, if you could go back in time and offer your younger self one piece of advice, what would you offer?
I think I would tell myself that it is okay to let go of this season of life. And
Would you believe yourself, you think?
probably not.
Okay.
But I think, no, I would only be able to tell myself this looking back, but that you're going to go on and accomplish so much more. Like, this is just a very early season in your life.
Kate, what piece of advice would you give young Kate?
First off, I wouldn't even try to give myself any advice because I know I wouldn't listen.
You were tough to talk to.
But honestly, if I found myself in a time machine, I'm so happy with my life now and where I'm at that if I was on a time machine, I'd be like, nobody touch anything. Like, don't change a bit, because every bit of it has brought me to where I'm at right now.
Let's not get too heady and too deep right here, but I love that. When I was a senior in college, my father took his own life. And it was one of the hardest things I ever had to deal with. And the fact is, I didn't deal with it for about 15 years. And I realize that if that particular cataclysmic event never took place, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't be married to Jennifer, which means there's no Mackenzie, there's no Hunter, there's no ETC Gymnastics, there's no Iron Business Solutions. These are things that I love, and the relationships I have with my athletes for real are things that I love. I'd have gone to law school. I probably would have been divorced 3 or 4 times. Like, it just wasn't going to be good. So I have accepted that if I could get in a time machine, I wouldn't undo what my dad did. I might change how my last conversation went down with him, because who knew it was your last conversation, right? But I wouldn't undo it. And I love your perspective because I think there's some wisdom in it. There's wisdom in the fact that you're grateful to be where you are, that you recognize where you are is right where you're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And that where you're supposed to be is this great place. So good on you. Heather, if you could go back in time and give young Heather a piece of advice, I guess that's how you answered the last question.
A little bit. I also don't think that little Heather would have listened. I don't think present Heather would have listened either.
I feel like that's probably true.
My piece of advice would be to like that I am good. I'm good at gymnastics. And
I gave you that advice.
Yeah. But I was, young and very skeptical of you for a very long time.
Who would be skeptical of me?
So just to know that I'm, have this talent, have this skill, and that I'm good at it, I don't know, maybe I would have continued, like I said, like I would have just kept pushing forward, kept pushing on to do that higher level gymnastics.
All right. The other thing I always like to ask my guests is, do you have a book recommendation? I'm a big reader. Anna, did you bring a book recommendation?
I did. So my book recommendation is called Men, Women, and Worthiness by Brene Brown. Basically, it's just going into the differences and how men and women deal with kind of like their identity and their worth, and how that plays out. Men tend to go more towards anger, whereas women tend to go towards, I know, like women, it's much more emotional and in a not angry way, and wanting to be like perfectionists.
So what's this book called again? Men,
and Worthiness.
Men, Women, and Worthiness. And the
Brene
author?
Brown.
Okay.
I don't have a book recommendation, but I do recommend ant farms.
Heather, book recommendation?
Also don't really have one. I'm not a huge reader, and what I would read would not be what you want to read at all. It's like vampires and stuff.
Oh, like Twilight? All right. Well, I mean, hey, if you read it, you read it.
I would recommend a book called The Power of Positive Thinking.
Who's the author?
I cannot remember.
Okay.
I just know my best friend was like, let's read this book together. I was kind of going through some things with trying to have my son. And she was going through other things, and she was like, I've already read this book a couple times, but let's read it again together and talk about it. And so we just, it helped my mindset of, instead of thinking the negative things of, oh, what if I can't have a baby one day, to positive things. And it helped change my mindset of like, if or will I be able to I'm going to have.
And then you did. Yeah. So I'm going to go off topic a little bit on my book recommendation this time, and I'm going to recommend a book called The Complete Works of Calvin and Hobbes by Bill Watterson. And for people that don't know, Bill Watterson wrote a comic strip that appeared in the newspaper back in the day called Calvin and Hobbes. And the strip is about a 6-year-old boy and his stuffed tiger. And I legitimately have ADHD. In fact, when I was a child, I had to go to a neurologist every 6 months and get a little EEG. And if my brain was still doing all the goofy stuff it was doing, then they would send me to a psychiatrist that I had to see once a week, and then they would prescribe me Ritalin. And Ritalin actually did wonders for me as a child. Like, I was able to participate in school and all these things that I wasn't able to do before I got on it. This is before they just started handing it out like it was candy. Like, there were like actual requirements. And Bill Watterson wrote a comic strip that does more to bring understanding to what a little boy's universe is than anything I have ever seen. And it's usually like 4 panels long, and it'll have very little dialogue. And it is funny and at the same time so deep. You have a little boy, you should read this. You'll get a kick out of it. Buy the collection and keep it in the restroom. And you'll begin to understand when your boy is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, you're going to understand, you're going to get insight into his world, into who he is, like you wouldn't believe, because of this strip. And I normally try to recommend some good business books and whatever, although I did recommend The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. But all right, as usual, people, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and the web at www.ironbusinesssolutions.com. Until the next episode of Stick the Landing podcast, brought to you by Iron Business Solutions, I'm Ken Harris with Iron Business Solutions, and we'll have stories to tell and solutions to deliver for your business. If you, my audience, want more information about the many ways Iron Business Solutions can help you reach your vision for your gym, visit us on the web or social media. Links in the description. And if you enjoy this podcast, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our channels. See you next month. Hey, if you enjoy this podcast, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media and leave us a review. Links in the description.